Alvin Bragg calls David Pecker to the stand, the very first witness in the prosecution against President Trump. And we remember who this guy is from our slides. David Pecker was the CEO of AMI until 2020. He allegedly was part of this catch and kill program. Michael Cohen worked with him. He was sued by Karen McDougal, and he was ultimately subpoenaed by the feds at one point, granted immunity, and then nothing came of that investigation. You see what the Inquirer looks like. You may have seen these magazines at the grocery store on the shelf somewhere and wondered where they came from. Well, AMI was the big company, and then David Pecker was behind it. So David Pecker is going to be the first person in the trial who is going to be testifying against the former president. And as usual, we're going over to Inner City Press for the reporting at Inner City Press. His links are down in the description below. And we're back from lunch. Very first witness ever, Judge Mercan tells the people, okay, Bragg, call your first witness. They say the people call David Pecker. And a lot of people are having fun with this David Pecker thing. I was even listening to a short clip from Jake Tapper, and he was saying it very forcefully when he was saying, tell me about how David Pecker was. And so because the name is a little bit unusual here, because this is a family show, this is of course a PG show, we want to be very careful when we use this term. We're not just throwing the Pecker word around all over the place, lest it end up somewhere we don't want it. We don't want Peckers poking in places we don't want him to. So we got to be clear about what it is we're talking about specifically. And so because this is the government's case, you can see this is the prosecutor's case here, and Bragg is the prosecutor, and it's Bragg's first witness, and Bragg's first witness is David Pecker. We're just going to call this, just to simplify everything, Bragg's Pecker, just so we all know what we're talking about. We don't want random Pecker talk. Bragg's Pecker, I think, is very simple. We can all be clear what we're talking about. Okay, so the government comes out and say, the people call David Pecker. He comes up. Raise your right hand. Sir, do you swear or affirm the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You're going to tell the truth, so help you God? Bragg's Pecker says, yes, I do. Now, I have nothing against David Pecker. He's probably a very nice guy. You know, probably a reasonable guy, just running a business. I got nothing against him. He's under subpoena, by the way, by Bragg. That's the other reason why it's Bragg's Pecker, because he's under subpoena. Bragg forced him to be there. So, you promise to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth? I do. Mr. Pecker, where are you from, sir? Yes, I promise to tell the truth, and I flew in here today from Fairfield County, Connecticut. Government starts with this one. All right, thank you for being here, Mr. Pecker. Sorry to start with this question, but how old are you, sir? Oh, no problem. I'm 72. And what do you do, sir? Now, I just do consulting, including I do some work for American media. And the judge says, hey, hold on a minute for a second. Jurors, you guys want some writing materials to write this stuff down? He says, please keep your hand up if you want something to write with. He's like, take this down. It's going to be good. Okay, this is the good stuff. So write this down. Now, we see at the defense table, there's been some musical chairs happening. Todd Blanche and Emil Bove have switched seats. Someone's getting closer to the jurors. Now, Trump is whispering to each of them in turn, telling him what he knows about Pecker. Government continues, okay, Mr. Pecker, what does AMI do here? Well, he says, well, it's pretty simple. You know, they publish celebrity magazines. You've seen a lot of these. Things like the National Enquirer, the Globe, In Touch, Star, Flex. When I was there, I was the chairman and the CEO. I owned about 10% of the organization. Okay. And when you were there, did you have final say on what would be published and what would not be published? He says, we use checkbook journalism. It's how we did it. We paid for stories. And so I set a $10,000 limit. So we just go pay for it. If it was more than $10,000, then yeah, it'd have to be vetted by me. So there was a threshold. And when you ran this organization, did you have meetings? Yeah. What were these editor meetings? Remember those? Yeah. Can you tell me about them? Sure. And well, what we would do there is I would consider the covers on who goes on the cover of the magazine because, you know, they were the most important thing. Like, what is the photo on it? It's what everybody sees, and that's why they buy the magazine. So it's important. So that's what I did. Now, in the time frame of your role there, what were the last 4 digits of your cell phone, sir? He says 7501. He says, is it 01 or is it 91? Says the prosecutor. He says, oh, it's 91. Yeah, sorry about that. And I had 5955 was my other number. And my New York office was 4899. And I had a Florida office, which was 1221. And I think I had 2 separate emails as well. So this guy's got a bunch of contact information. He's dropping them all off. Sir, are you here under subpoena today? Yes, I am. That's why he's Bragg's Pecker, because Bragg brought him with him. Okay. So you didn't come voluntarily. Well, I'm here under subpoena. Mr. Pecker, who was Dylan Howard? Do you remember that name? He says, sure I do. Yeah. He was the chief editor-in-chief. So he was the chief editor-in-chief, not just the editor-in-chief. Wow. And so he ran the network, of course, right, for AMI? He says, yeah. And so when it comes to big, juicy stories, did Dylan Howard run these stories by you? He says, yeah, he did. That was part of his job. What were your sources for some of these stories? Like, where did you get these? Where did they originate from? Well, for us, it was a lot of different people, you know, limousine drivers, people who work for lawyers, Wow, that's scandalous. You have your legal assistants or something ratting out your clients. Woo, like that. Where is Dylan Howard now? Australia, he says. So Dylan Howard's not available. He's in Australia. Prosecutor says, does he have health issues? Trump's lawyer says, objection. That's overruled because Trump made the objection. So of course it gets overruled. Now my understanding is, reading around, filling in the gaps, I think that Dylan Howard has some sort of spinal condition and he's not able to travel because of that condition. So a prosecutor wanted to bring that up for whatever reason, probably to fill out the question that you might be asking, which is, where is Dylan Howard? Like, the jurors might be saying, okay, well, if Dylan Howard knows all this stuff, where is he? Why doesn't he come testify? Well, because he's got a spinal problem in Australia. Okay. So prosecutor continues, Mr. Pecker, who was Bonnie Fuller? Says, oh, Bonnie. Yeah. We had to compete with her and her Us Weekly magazine. She was killing us. So I decided to hire her. I just went and hired her. Smart move. Can't beat him. Just go hire him. So the justice says, okay, Judge Merchant. So it says, okay, we're going to stop right there for the day. It's the time for the juror's appointment. So we'll call it there. We're going to end it here for the day. Now the jurors leave. Pecker steps down from the witness stand and he'll be back up on the stand tomorrow. No doubt about it. So Mercan says, okay, so the jurors are gone. All rise. All right, please be seated. Jurors are gone. Judge says, all right, before we wrap here for the day, we're going to have our hearing on contempt tomorrow. Remember, Trump, they want him fined $3,000 for contempt. He says, if we're not done by 11, and I expect we will be, we're just going to stop and we'll let the jury in. And so we'll pick it up later. So we're going to do contempt. Then we're going to do more from Pecker, and then they'll call it a day. Trump's attorney, Emil, stands up. Your Honor, we objected to some testimony from Pecker today about the whereabouts of Dylan Howard. Okay, that's hearsay and that's irrelevant. You shouldn't be talking about where he is. That's an out-of-court statement. It's not relevant to this matter. And the prosecutor says, sorry, Your Honor, it could be foundational as to witness availability, right? Why isn't he here? Well, he's got a spinal problem. So judge says, your objection's noted, Emil. Quiet, sit down. And Trump's lawyer, Bove, now stands up, or that's Emil. He says, we expect them to elicit newspaper articles. We'd like the court to give a limiting instruction to the jury when they're reading these newspaper articles from the National Enquirer. Now the government says, well, at some point, yeah, we are going to introduce these exhibits, pro-Trump headlines in the National Enquirer, and we're also going to show the anti-opponent headlines only for the dates that we have listed here. So they're going to show, right, in other words, they're trying to show that there's a conspiracy. Pecker was writing stories to attack Trump's opponents, and the National Enquirer was a tool against Trump, or maybe Putin, who knows. Only for the dates, though. Emil says, Your Honor, this is crazy. There will be some November 2015 emails with Sharon Churcher and others, but there's also hearsay. And in this batch of documents, that hearsay stuff cannot come in. And the government says, well, Judge, it would have been better if we'd heard about this months ago. Why are they just bringing it up now? But we could agree some is not for the truth. Like, we just want to show it for other purposes, but not to prove the truth of the matter asserted. So it's not actually hearsay. We'll get it in for another purpose. So the judge says, okay, well, why don't you, Mr. Bove, Emil, why don't you identify the ones that you're concerned about from these newspaper articles? And he says, well, we only learned about them when Mr. Pecker was called yesterday at 3 p.m. on Sunday, because you won't tell us who's coming in. That's why we didn't bring it up before, because we only learned that you were calling him. Government says, Your Honor, can we approach for a moment so they could talk about the contempt motion? And apparently that happened quickly and we're done. So they come back. Judge Mercan says, see you tomorrow. They ended early because the jurors had an appointment, and they're ending early tomorrow because of Passover. And once again, inner city press reporting. Shout out to Matthew Russell Lee for the great analysis. So the day ended early. Trump came out. He had a little bit more to say on this.
I think it went very well. So you heard that yourself. This is a case that nobody wanted to bring, including Alvin Bragg. It was just at the last minute they decided to do it. It's a case that, if you're looking back, it goes back many, many years, 2015, maybe before that. And it's a case as to bookkeeping, which is a very minor thing in terms of the law, in terms of all the violent crime that's going on outside as we speak, right outside as we speak. This is a case where you pay a lawyer, he's a lawyer, and they call it a legal expense. That's the exact term they use, legal expense, in the books. And another thing that wasn't even said was we never even deducted it as a tax deduction. So that takes a whole vast, most people want to deduct everything. We never even took it as a tax deduction. But they called the payment to a lawyer a legal expense.
Makes sense.
Books. They didn't call it construction. They didn't say you're building a building. It called a payment to a lawyer because, as you know, Cohn is a lawyer. Represented a lot of people over the years. Now, I'm not the only one. And wasn't very very good in a lot of ways in terms of his representation. But he represented a lot of people. But he puts in an invoice or whatever, a bill, and they pay and they call it a legal expense. I got indicted for that.
Yeah.
What else would you call it? Actually, nobody's been able to say what you're supposed to call it. If a lawyer puts in a bill or an invoice and you pay the bill and in the book, it's a little line. That's a very small little line. I don't know if you could even write more than 2 words. It's not like you could tell a life story. They marked it down to a legal expense. This is what I got indicted over.
What are you supposed to put, I guess?
I got indicted. I'm the leading candidate. I'm beating Biden. I'm beating the Republicans now. I have the nomination. And this is what they try and take me off the trail for. That check's being paid to a lawyer. He is a lawyer, or was a lawyer. And also the things he got in trouble for were things that had nothing to do with me. He got in trouble. He went to jail. This had nothing to do with me. This had to do with the taxi cab company that he owned, which is something he owned, and medallions and borrowing money and a lot of things, but it had nothing to do with me. But they take this payment and they call it a legal expense, and you heard it today for the first time. This is what I got indicted over. This is what took me off and takes me off the campaign trail, because I should be in Georgia now. I should be in Florida now. I should be in a lot of different places right now campaigning, and I'm sitting here, and this will go on for a long time. It's very unfair. The judge is conflicted, as you know.
Yes.
It's very unfair what's going on.
It is unfair.
And I should be allowed to campaign. And whoever heard of this, he got indicted for that? People in the court just said to me, I can't believe it. This is the case. So we did nothing wrong. The other thing is, if this were such a great case, why didn't the Southern District bring it? Who looked at it, turned it down?
Or Cyrus
Why
Vance.
didn't numerous other agencies and
Alvin Bragg.
law enforcement groups look at it? Because it was shown to everybody. And very importantly, why didn't the federal elections do anything about it? Because this is federal, it's not state. They're trying to make it a state case, whatever. It's not state, it has nothing to do. It's never happened before, I believe. Never happened before. This has never happened before, where the state tries to insert itself in federal elections. Nobody's ever seen it. But you know, federal elections took a total pass on it. They said essentially nothing was done wrong, or they would have done something about it. They're tough. They would have done something about it. But they said nothing, and they said, we're going to take a pass. Because they couldn't even believe it. Actually, if you read their letter, they couldn't even believe it. They were incredulous. And yet, Bragg picks it up. Now, with Bragg, if you look, when he first came in, he didn't want to do it.
No, he didn't.
He didn't want to do it. Now, when are they going to look at Pomerantz and what Pomerantz
Until
did?
Colangelo came
stuff.
down.
And when are they going to look at all the lies that Cohen did in the last trial? He got caught lying in the last trial. So he got caught lying. And when are they going to look at that? Now we'll go to another subject, because just a few blocks away, as you know, they had a trial on 175.
That was Tish James, and so we'll leave that there. But this is Todd Blanche standing next to him, and you can see these two fellas got the contrasting ties, blue and red, with a similar sheen to both of them for a nice combo there in court. So Trump there, day 5 of the trial, and Bragg's Pecker testified under subpoena. They had to subpoena that Pecker to come on in here, and he showed up and then started testimony. Now we're going to be back, of course, on the following day tomorrow with the remainder of Bragg's Pecker's testimony, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you join us as we continue our coverage here. Thank you for subscribing and liking this video wherever it is you're watching this. Thanks for inviting a friend or family member to come on over and join us, and thank you for becoming a member and supporting us with your membership. And it's a great place to get some additional content, meet some amazing people, and have some fun while we talk about the madness going on around us. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you over there and back here on the next one.